Welcome to the APMM Virtual Conference 2021. We'd like to take a minute to highlight one of our excellent conference sponsors, shipandinsure.com, out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. The go-to source for insuring your most precious cargo or one-of-a-kind models, Ship and Insure can help calm your nerves when you have to trust the shipping gods at the end of a long project. Make sure to drop by the Vendor Expo this evening and spend some time with Ship and Insure and learn more about how they can serve your needs. From everyone on the board of directors and your president, Jill Kennick, we are excited for you to join us for this valuable workshop. In today's session, Daphne Boston of the Evergreen Safety Council will be providing a comprehensive discussion of shop and studio safety audits and includes an interactive exercise to teach you how to identify hazards in the workplace. If you have any questions, Daphne Boston, as well as an APMM representative, will be available in the chat, and we encourage you to discuss the concepts and ideas presented with the other attendees. The chat will be open until the end of the hour, and after the workshop has completed, we will have open Q&A for the remainder of the time. And with that, tally-ho!
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending my seminar today. My name is Daphne Boston, and I'm with Evergreen Safety Council. And my seminar today is on conducting studio and shop safety audits. So for my seminar today, I have a presentation. It has 4 sections. And after my presentation, I have a virtual desktop activity for us to go through together. And then at the end of the activity, I have some resources to share with you, which contain additional information on the topics I'm going to be discussing today. And so the 4 sections of my presentation are the importance of conducting safety audits, more on injuries, illnesses, and property damage that are caused by safety hazards, what to look for in a studio or shop safety audit, and how to correct and prevent safety hazards. So I'm Daphne. It's great to be here with you all at the conference today talking about studio and shop safety. I am a freelance safety and health consultant for the Evergreen Safety Council, and I also work full-time as a government contractor. And I have about 17 years of experience in workplace safety and health. Most of my experience has been in the manufacturing and printing industries. However, most recently, my experience has been in government and in academia. And so the Evergreen Safety Council is based in Kirkland, Washington. They were established in 1932, and they are actually one of the very first nonprofit safety councils to have been established in the United States. And the Evergreen Safety Council provides a number of workplace safety and transportation and driver safety services, including pilot car and traffic control supervisor certifications, driver safety instructor and student training, forklift and flagger certifications, motorcycle training, and occupational safety consulting and training services. Okay, so starting off, my presentation is the first section, and so that's the importance of conducting safety audits. And to begin this section, I have 3 questions to ask you to get you in the mindset of thinking about studio and shop safety and how it applies to where you do your work as model makers. And so my first question is, why should we ensure our workplaces are safe? And I believe that we can all agree that the answer to this question is very obvious. Safe workplaces prevent injuries, they prevent illnesses, and they prevent property damage. Safe workplaces save lives, they save money. And at the end of the day, it's just the right thing to do, right? Because accidents, no matter what type of accidents they are, they have such an adverse effect on the quality of life and the nature of business. And so it's just the right thing to do. It makes sense. And I also wanted to add, if you are an employer here today attending my seminar, I do have some notes that you'll see on some of my slides on some of the topics that I'll be covering today. Even though my presentation is not just for employers, it's for anyone, whether you do model making in your profession or if it's your hobby, and if it's within your profession, whether you're a sole proprietor with just yourself, or if you're a sole proprietor or an LLC and you have employees or independent contractors working for you, or if you're a large employer, this information is for all of you. And so I included the notes throughout my presentation, just so you would know that in addition to what I'm recommending today, when I start talking about correcting and preventing safety hazards, there are sometimes additional steps that you have to take as employers to make sure that your workplaces are safe. And for each one of those notes at the end of my seminar, I have a slide that has a list of resources where you can get additional information on each of those topics. Okay, so my second question is, what constitutes a workplace? And so I'm sure you have your own definition or your own opinion of what a workplace is to you. And there are certainly a number of different definitions out there about what workplaces are. And so this is my definition. So it's any place where goods are made or where services are performed that will benefit yourself or others. And payment may or may not be exchanged for these goods and services. In workplaces, they can be in commercial spaces, but they can also be inside your home or on the property of your home. And so I realize as model makers that some of you do have your studios and your shops inside your homes or on the property of your home. And another example, for instance, is like bakeries, small business owners of bakeries. They have their bakeries right inside the kitchens of their homes. And then you can see in these pictures that I've shared here that there's a shed and a garage that have been converted into workshops. So workplaces can be in a number of different locations. Whichever locations your workplaces are in, they do need to be kept safe. And then my third question is, do we need to audit our workplaces? And so the short answer is yes, we do. However, safety audits, they can be informal. They don't have to be involved in difficult effort. They can be something as simple as doing walkthroughs throughout the day to find safety hazards. You can do walkthroughs at the beginning of the day before you start your work. You can do another walkthrough at the end of the day after you complete work. And then throughout the day, you can do self-checks looking for safety hazards. And you're just looking for anything that could hurt you, make you sick, or damage property that you own or lease at your company or your business. And so what types of safety hazards are we talking about? So I selected this list of 9 to talk to you about today as common safety hazards that are likely found in the studios and the shops that you work in. And so I was thinking about what types of hazards as model makers might you be exposed to. So hopefully this list of 9 and the information that I've compiled around this list of 9 hazards will be beneficial to you. And you'll see these list of 9 hazards throughout the remaining sections of my presentation today. So I'm going to talk about chemical hazards, ergonomic hazards, electrical hazards, fall hazards, falling object hazards, fire hazards, mechanical hazards, noise hazards, and pneumatic hazards. And so to kind of like bring it home, the importance of conducting safety audits, conducting safety audits helps us be proactive in finding and correcting safety hazards. And so when we're proactive in finding and correcting safety hazards, it prevents accidents from happening. And so those accidents that I'm going to also talk about today are injuries, illnesses, and property damage. And so if we're able to find and correct safety hazards before accidents happen, then we don't have those type of accidents. Okay, so this is some more information on the injuries and illnesses and types of property damage that are caused by safety hazards. And so for injuries that are caused by safety hazards, they can be anything from head injuries, strains, sprains, broken bones, joint dislocations, and even death caused by fall hazards and mechanical hazards. You can also have strains, sprains, and other soft tissue injuries caused by ergonomic hazards, burns to the body, electric shock, electrocution, and even death, all caused by chemical, fire, and electrical hazards. You can have damage to your eyes, your lungs, and other types of flying object injuries to the body caused by pneumatic hazards. And you can also have lacerations, amputations, and other types of caught in or struck by injuries like the gray picture there and the yellow picture there. And even death, all caused by mechanical hazards. And also damage to the inner ear is a type of injury that is caused by noise hazards and also pneumatic hazards. And so for illnesses that are caused by safety hazards, you can have anything from vertigo and dizziness that are caused by fall hazards and falling object hazards to poisoning, asphyxiation, cancer, and even death that are all caused by chemical hazards. Also lung damage, nervous system damage, damage to other internal organs and internal body systems, and death, all caused by chemical hazards, fire hazards, and electrical hazards, and also hearing loss. And so hearing loss is a type of illness that's caused by noise hazards. And then property damage that's caused by safety hazards. You can have broken doors, broken furniture, windows, computing equipment, damages to your inventory and supplies caused by fall hazards and falling object hazards, malfunctioning and inoperable machines, power tools, and other equipment, all caused by chemical, electrical, mechanical, as well as pneumatic hazards. And you can have liquid damage to your inventory and your floors and supplies, your inventory, your walls, and other structures, all caused by chemical hazards. And the main hazard that we all know about for property damage is obviously fire, right? And fire can destroy everything that you own, from your inventory to your buildings, to your furniture, your machines, and your tools and equipment. Okay, so now that we're all on the same page about why it's important to conduct safety audits, I will talk about what to look for when you're conducting a safety audit in your shop or your studio. So for chemical hazards, you want to look for containers with missing caps or lids, the improper use of chemicals, so that would be you or your employees, or if you have independent contractors who are working for you. Also, field power generators that are not being utilized properly. We all know what happens in those scenarios. For ergonomic hazards, you want to make sure or look for you yourself, or if you have independent contractors, if they're you or them are doing any type of manual lifting of heavy loads, any kind of standing, sitting, reaching, or squatting for extended periods of time, or any type of work with heavy or vibrating tools for extended periods of time. For electrical hazards, you want to look for daisy-chained extension cords and power strips, frayed wires, missing ground prongs, signs of arcing on outlets, blocked electrical panels like you see in the picture there, and damaged circuit breakers. And for mechanical hazards, you want to look for loose or missing guards that normally cover pinch points and crush points. Also, any interlocks that might be bypassed on your larger machines, like your milling machines. And so in this picture here, you see this green bench grinder is missing both of its guards that should be on top of or attached to these wheel covers. And so that's an example of the missing guards on a piece of machining equipment. And then you also want to look for rusted, loose, or missing parts. And also keep an eye out for loose clothing and long hair. Anyone that's working in your shop or your studio on a machine or a piece of equipment, the loose clothing and the long hair can get caught in those machines and equipment and cause severe injury or death. So that's something to look out for as well. For fall hazards, you want to look for spilled liquid on the floors, wires or other objects in walkways, clutter on the floor, floor openings that aren't secured like you see in the picture there, improper ladder and step stool usage. For falling object hazards, you want to look for objects that are being stored above shoulder height that are not secured. And then also overhead cranes and hoists with loads and metal slings that are suspended in the air while not in use. And for fire hazards, you want to look for rags that have been used with flammable or combustible chemicals that have not been disposed of properly, and flammable and combustible chemicals and compressed gases that are not stored properly, paper or cardboard that's being stored near outlets or near where hot work is being performed, like your welding and your cutting and your brazing. And for noise, you want to listen for loud noise that's coming from machines and equipment that's either constant or sporadic. And then also listen for loud noise that pulses or pounds in your eardrums. So if your ears are hurting from a pulsing or a pounding sensation, it's too loud where you're in your work area. And so pneumatic hazards for compressed air, you want to look for loose, missing, or broken fittings and parts on pneumatic power tools and equipment. You also want to look for damaged or worn air hoses and shutoff valves to air supplies. And you want to pay attention for anyone in your workplace who's using compressed air for cleaning. And so that's unsafe. And for pneumatic hazards, for compressed gas, you also want to look for loose, broken, malfunctioning, or missing parts of the cylinder valve or the regulators. And there's a picture of a damaged regulator there. Also damage to the cylinder itself and cylinders that are stored improperly, and also look for missing cylinder caps. Okay, so now that we know what to look for, we found our safety hazards. Now we want to correct them and correct them in such a way that prevents them from occurring again. So when correcting and preventing safety hazards, the first step is to always try to eliminate the hazard. So to completely remove the hazard from the work area or the workplace so that it doesn't exist anymore. And here we see the hierarchy of controls, and this was designed by the National Institute of Safety and Health. They are commonly referred to by their acronym, which is NIOSH. And NIOSH, you can think of NIOSH as like a sister organization to OSHA. OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And so NIOSH conducts the research for the regulations that OSHA implements, that they develop and implement. And so they developed this hierarchy of controls to provide a framework for everyone to help them determine what's the best method of controlling, addressing safety hazards in workplaces. And so you see the hierarchy is in the shape of a V, and at the top of the V is the most effective method of control. And then as you go down each level, the method of control becomes less effective. And so the first level of control is elimination. And so as I mentioned, elimination is when you physically remove the hazard so the hazard doesn't exist anymore. And so that's the most effective method of control. And so sometimes you're not able to eliminate the hazard, so then you move to the next level of control, which is substitution. And substitution, you're still addressing the hazard, but you're replacing the hazard with something less hazardous. And so it can be the hazardous chemical, material, job, task, or process. You're going to replace that with a less harmful or a not harmful at all chemical, material, job, task, or process whenever that's possible. Sometimes, though, substitution as well is not possible. So anytime a level of control is not feasible for whatever reason, you just keep moving to the next levels of control. And so the three lower levels of control are yellow, orange, and red because they've been determined to be less effective, because at that point, when you start with engineering controls, you are no longer addressing the hazard, you're addressing the person. So the hazard still exists. It's been determined that you can't do anything to change the hazard. So then you're going to change the environment where people work around the hazard so that the person can still be safe while they're doing the job, when the hazard is present. So next after substitution is engineering controls. And so this is when you isolate people from the hazard. So you get them away from the hazard, even though the hazard is still there, they're not right there with the hazard. And so that would be considered engineering controls. Administrative controls is when you change the way people work. And so then after administrative controls is personal protective equipment. And so this is when you're not able to isolate the person from the hazard. You're not able to change the way the person is working. So then you put personal protective equipment directly on the person and to help protect them as much as possible in the best way possible so that they can get the job done. And so this is my first note here for employers. And so if you are an employer, OSHA requires that you have a written hazard assessment conducted prior to selecting and issuing personal protective equipment for your employees. Okay, so moving on to how to correct and prevent the 9 hazards that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. And so to be clear, these recommendations for these 9 hazards that I'm going to present to you fall within the lower tiers, the lower 3 tiers of the hierarchy of control. So these recommendations are if you've determined that you're not able to eliminate the hazard, and if you're not able to substitute the hazard, then you can follow these recommendations as well. So for how to correct and prevent chemical hazards, you always want to read the chemical safety data sheet before using it. And so all chemicals come with a safety data sheet. So if you're buying chemicals as a model maker and you don't have the safety data sheet, then you should contact either the supplier that you bought the chemical from or contact the manufacturer directly. And nowadays you can go to the manufacturer's website and download their safety data sheet directly. And so you want to pay particular attention to Section 7. And so this ensures that you will be using and storing the hazardous chemical properly. And then you also want to pay particular attention to Section 8 of the safety data sheet, because this ensures that you will be wearing the recommended personal protective equipment when you're using the chemical. And so after you have read and taken the measures that are outlined in the safety data sheet, you also want to ensure that work areas are adequately ventilated. And then you want to ensure that you have emergency eye wash stations or showers positioned within 10 seconds of walking distance anywhere where you're using hazardous chemicals. And eye wash stations, they can be portable or they can be plumbed. And so there's a picture there of a portable eye wash station. Those are easy to buy and easy to install and easy to maintain. You can see that one is hanging up on the wall with just a simple bracket there. And so I have another note here for employers. So if you are an employer and you're using hazardous chemicals in your workplace, OSHA does require you to have a hazard communication program to be implemented for your workplace. And so how to correct and prevent ergonomic hazards. So you can consider installing tool balancers and torque arms at workstations. And so there is a picture there of a tool balancer installed at a workstation and a torque arm installed on a workbench. And so both of those provide a great amount of relief to the hand, wrist, arms, elbows, shoulder, and the back when using heavier tools. You can consider implementing a 2-person lift policy and use lift assist equipment for lifting heavy loads. And you can use anti-vibration gloves for work tasks that require the use of tools or machines that vibrate a lot. And then use anti-fatigue mats for anyone who's going to be on their feet for most of the day doing work tasks. And then you can also implement a job rotation program. And so job rotation is a form of administrative control that I mentioned on those 2 slides about the hierarchy of controls. And so administrative controls is when you change the way that people work. And so an example of job rotation would be if in your warehouse, you have a shipping and receiving clerk who's at their desk most of the day, and then you have a packer who's on their feet most of the day. You can rotate them between the 2 tasks throughout the day so that the packer is not on their feet all day, and then that the clerk is not sitting at their desk all day. And so that gives the muscles a great amount of relief getting to change positions throughout the day. And then also you can implement a stretching program before, during, or after work. And stretching, just the same way that it helps sports athletes warm up their bodies before they start doing their sport, it also helps us. We're considered industrial athletes in our professions. And so stretching helps us also warm up before we start work and makes us less prone to injury. And how to correct and prevent electrical hazards. So you want to use surge protectors and extension cords properly. So no daisy chains, and ensure if you are using extension cords, they're only for temporary use, not permanent use. And you want to check circuit breakers and high voltage power disconnects on your machines on a regular basis. And please enlist in the assistance of an electrician if there is any live electrical work that you need done. You want to ensure that electrical panels have 36 inches of clearance around them, even the ones in your garage. Make sure that they don't have anything blocking them and that there's 36 inches of clearance around them. And then repair or dispose of equipment and tools with damaged cords and wires. And then always try to use the ground fault circuit interrupter outlets whenever possible. Okay, so how to correct and prevent mechanical hazards. So you want to perform inspections, scheduled maintenance, and unplanned maintenance and repairs on machines, equipment, and tools when it's required. And you want to repair or replace damaged or missing machine guards, and also get older machines and equipment retrofitted with new guards. And so you can see this picture here. This is an older drill press, and it's been retrofitted with a new guard. And so here, this blue bench grinder has the guards on its wheel covers. And so if you remember in the what to look for slide where I was talking about mechanical hazards, I showed you a picture of a green bench grinder and it was missing its two guards on those wheel covers. So this is how it's supposed to look when the guards are installed properly on the bench grinders. And then just ensure that parts are working properly on all of your machines and equipment, and take machines, equipment, and tools out of service if they're damaged. And I have another note here for employers. So if you are an employer, OSHA requires you to have a lockout, tagout, hazardous energy control program implemented at your workplace for servicing and maintenance activities on machines and equipment. And how to correct and prevent fall hazards. So you always want to have 3 points of contact on ladders when using them, and inspect ladders and step stools always before using them. And safely use step stools. Don't stand on chairs, tables, and desks, please. And clean up spills immediately. Use wet floor signs if it's a larger issue and can't be cleaned up immediately. And you want to clean up water from snow and rain immediately, and use salt on outdoor walkways in the winter. Use anti-slip mats indoors and outdoors. I have another note here for employers. So if you are an employer, you must also implement the use of OSHA required fall protection when working at heights above 4 feet. And on how to correct and prevent falling object hazards. So you want to store heavy objects at ground or near ground level. Avoid storing heavy tools on walls. You want to use tool chest instead. Avoid storing any objects above shoulder height that are not secured or stacked in such a way to prevent tipping. And so here I'm thinking about the warehouse environment. As in most warehouses, it's impossible not to stock products above shoulder height. And so if you are stacking products at above shoulder height, you just want to make sure that they're stacked safely in such a way that they're not going to tip over. And so you want to use anti-tip anchor straps to secure your racks and your shelving. And then also consider wearing hard hats when doing overhead work. I'm not for sure as model makers how much, if any, overhead work you do, but if you are doing overhead work, consider wearing hard hats because tools do slip out of our hands and parts do fall. And so a falling tool or a falling part can cause a lot of damage to us and hurt us. And so consider wearing hard hats if you do any type of overhead work. And so on how to correct and prevent fire hazards. So you want to ensure that hot work is being performed safely in an isolated and well-ventilated area. Ensure that flammable liquid storage containers are grounded, like you see in the picture there in the lower picture. And so you want to use flammable storage cabinets and waste cans for flammable chemical and material storage and disposal. And you also want to store cardboard and other paper products safely away from anything that can catch them on fire, and also consider setting up recycling bins for disposal. That's a safe way to store paper and cardboard that you're going to be getting rid of soon. And I just wanted to share a little more information also on correcting and preventing fire hazards. So first, please consider the chemical and electrical hazards that I mentioned previously, because they also cause fire hazards. And then learn when it's appropriate to use a fire extinguisher and how to use a fire extinguisher. And so most times it's best to, if there's a fire in your work area or at your workplace, or even at home, this applies to at home outside of, what we're talking about today, but it's best to just get out of wherever the fire is and call the fire department. Make sure you, your loved ones, your colleagues, your employees, visitors, contractors, whoever it may be, that everyone just exits the building or the facility and call the fire department. They're the experts, and so call them and let them fight the fire for you. Don't try to take that on yourself. And but we all do need to know how to use a fire extinguisher just for extreme cases. And so there's an image there on how to use the fire extinguisher using the PASS method. And so you also want to know the different types of fire extinguishers and the types of fires that they extinguish, and ensure that your fire extinguishers are serviced once a year. And so there's a couple more images there on the different types of fires and the different types of fire extinguishers. And so you also want to check smoke alarms monthly and change batteries as needed. and on how to correct and prevent noise hazards. So you want to use a sound level meter to test noise levels. And so you can find a sound level meter on a mobile app and as a mobile app, or you can use a handheld one. There's a picture of a handheld sound level meter in the picture with the earmuffs. And so for work areas where the noise level is 85 decibels or higher, some type of intervention is needed because that's too loud, even if it's just for a short amount of time. And so you can use sound blankets to isolate noisy work areas from other people that are in the area. And that's an example of an engineering control. If you recall back on the 2 hierarchy of control slides that I talked about earlier. So noise blankets will isolate the noise hazard from other people. Sometimes you have to work within that noisy area. And so you can see in this picture, there's an employee working inside the noise blankets. And so while the noise is being muffled for other people in this facility or this work area, he has to actually work inside the area. So he has on earmuffs. And so that's what I was referring to earlier for the personal protective level of control, the personal protective equipment level of control on that hierarchy, where it showed that personal protective equipment is the least effective because you aren't doing anything with the hazard. At that point, you're protecting the employee. So this is an example actually of both in work at the same time. So you see the noise blanket is shielding other people from the hazard, and then the earmuffs are shielding the employee that has to work in the hazard. And then my last bullet point there is, yes, so we're hearing protection such as earplugs or earmuffs also to address noise hazards. And then the picture in the lower right there, that's just an example of a machine. So you can use sound blankets actually to wrap machines themselves also, and it dampens the noise quite a bit. And so there's options there. And I have another note for employers here. So if you're an employer and noise levels are at 90 decibels or higher in your work areas for 8 hours or more, OSHA does require for you to have a hearing conservation program in place at your workplace. Okay, and so how to correct and prevent pneumatic hazards in terms of compressed air. So as I mentioned earlier, you don't want to use compressed air for cleaning yourself ever. That can cause damage to your eyes, your eardrums, your lungs. And so just it's not good, it's not safe. It's not allowed by OSHA if you're an employer to use compressed air for cleaning yourself off. Now, it's not good either to use it for cleaning work areas, but if you must, OSHA does allow, if you're an employer, allow you to use compressed air for cleaning, but the pressure of the compressed air has to be below 30 psi, and you have to be wearing personal protective equipment if you're going to do that. So you have to have on a face shield, safety goggles, gloves, long sleeves, pants, etc., protecting yourself from any of the, if it's metal chips or wood chips or other types of debris that you're cleaning, so it doesn't blow on you and hurt yourself or other people that are in the area. And so you also want to repair or replace shut-off valves to air supplies and pneumatic power tools that have broken, loose, or missing fittings, and then also dispose of and replace damaged or worn air hoses. And then how to correct and prevent pneumatic hazards in terms of compressed gas. You want to repair or replace broken valves and regulators that are on compressed gas cylinders. Ensure that your compressed gas cylinders are chained or otherwise secured at all times. And so I'm sure we've all seen video of compressed gas cylinders that turned into rockets because they were damaged and not handled properly. And so then at that point, there's really nothing you can do about that but take shelter and hope that the compressed gas cylinder does not cause anyone any injury or damage any property that you have while it's emptying it itself. And so make sure that they're chained and otherwise secured at all times. And also you want to ensure that your compressed gas cylinders have safety caps on them when they're not in use. And also follow your distributor safety precautions for the compressed gas cylinders that you're purchasing from them, or if they do your refilling. So they have safety precautions outlined, all of the safety precautions that need to be followed when you're using compressed gas. So please ensure that you're paying attention to those and always following those. Okay, so that completes the presentation portion of my seminar today. we are going to now move into the virtual desktop activity that I have for us to go through. And so it's an audit activity. We're going to find the hazards. And so I have a picture of a workplace, and there are 10 hazards that I see in the picture. So I'm going to give you a minute to try to find all 10 hazards. And so then I will go over the ones that I found after we get through looking for them. And then I would be interested in knowing if anyone finds more than 10 or if you find a different 10 than the ones that I found. So I'm going to set my stopwatch here for 1 minute, and then I will flip to the picture and we will go. All right, ready, set, go. 1 minute. Okay, gave you a couple extra seconds there. So let's get started here. Okay, so the first one that I saw was the drill press looks like it's missing a guard. And if you remember the retrofitted guard that I showed you on the older drill press on correcting and preventing mechanical hazards on that slide, there was the guard was attached here, and then the plexiglass came down over the spindle. So I don't see that. And then I've also seen on older drill presses where there's a flexible arm attached somewhere up here, and it's attached to a piece of larger plexiglass. And so the plexiglass, you can put it down and you can lift it up. So I don't see that here either. So it looks like this drill press doesn't have a guard. So that's why I selected this one. The next one is this knot here, and it looks like it's blocking this gentleman from standing in front of the drill press. He's actually standing on the side, possibly because this knot in the power cord is here. So that's a major trip hazard. Next, I saw this panel that's hiding the fire extinguisher, even though there's a sign here. Like if they were to look here, they would see the panel first and not the fire extinguisher if they're walking from this walkway. So that's why I selected that one. Next is actually the power cord again, going into the walkway now and causing another trip hazard. Next is this saw sitting on the edge of this table. At a minimum, the saw should probably be in the middle of the table for safer operation. I really don't like the saw on the table at all because it could fall off or it could flip off when they're using the saw. It could flip the table because I'm not for sure how sturdy this table is. I know some of these steel tables, they look flimsy, but they're actually super heavy. And so I'm just not sure what type of table that is. So I selected this one because at a minimum, even if it is a sturdy table, it should be here in the middle because it could fall off of there. And so next is the table itself causing a trip hazard. It's in the walkway and shouldn't be. Next is this cardboard box. Looks like it's sitting on top of what might be a baler. And if it's empty, it should be in the baler. And if it's not empty, if there's like a sheet of glass in there or a sheet of metal, then it definitely shouldn't be up there because it could fall and hurt or kill someone. And so next is this trash can. Looks like we have a paper towel hanging out and some cardboard going on next to this hot work. And so that's a fire hazard. Next is this door. So it looks like this is not a door to the outside, but a door to another part of the facility. And then you can see this large gray structure here. So it starts over here and the cardboard's kind of in the way, but if you see it's poking out of the cardboard, you can see it ends like right there. So that's blocking almost the entire doorway. And so that's a safety hazard, because if they needed to, whatever this room is on the other side, if they needed to get out in the event of emergency, they couldn't because the door is blocked. And same here, if these people needed to go into this room for a shelter, they would have a big delay trying to get that out of the way. So yeah, that's a safety hazard. And so last is this this metal mesh sling that's hanging on this crane. And so I turned the arrow red because I wanted to see if anybody remembered. I specifically mentioned this in the what to look for section of my presentation for falling object hazards. And so for employers, so there's no requirement from OSHA to say that you can't leave your metal mesh or whatever your below the hook device is that you use hanging while it's not in use. However, they are supposed to be inspected before each use. And so if they are hanging up there like that, it leads me to believe that they're not being inspected before each use, that they are just using them when they get ready to, when they get ready to move a load or to lift a load. So they shouldn't be hanging up there, and they should be stored in a container and inspected and then put away after they've been used. So those are the 10 that I found. And so, like I said, if you found more than 10, or if you have some different ones, I'd be interested in knowing which ones you found. And so this is the end of my seminar. And so this is the list of resources that I had mentioned. And so if you would like to write down this link, I shortened it, so hopefully you could write it down without going through too much trouble. There's a folder here at this link, and this is a link to a Google Drive that I set up that has some resources in it. There's a calendar in there from Washington State OSHA's office, the 2021 Find the Hazards calendar. It's a neat calendar. It has a picture similar to the pictures that we just looked at for the virtual desktop activity, audit activity, for each month of 2021. So it's a neat calendar, and you can use that and share it as you like. And then also in this folder is a checklist for safety audits. So hopefully you were inspired today to start doing safety audits in your shops and your studios if you haven't been doing them already. And so there's a neat checklist in there. It's easy to use, and so you can use that as you see necessary. And also there's an actual safety data sheet in there that I showed you a screenshot when I was going through the how to correct and prevent chemical hazards slide. And so there's a screenshot of a safety data sheet for paint thinner. And so the actual safety data sheet for paint thinner is in there. And so I thought that would be good to share with you, because I know as model makers, I'm sure that you've used paint thinner on more than one occasion. So check out particularly section 7 and section 8 and see what you think about the handling. And so are you doing those things? And the personal protective equipment it tells you to wear, are you wearing that personal protective equipment when you use paint thinner? And then just, get in the habit, like I said earlier, about when you're buying chemicals, ask if the safety data sheet doesn't come with it, ask for it, get it, and then look at it, and then make sure that whatever it's telling you to do to protect yourself, that you're doing it when you're using the chemical. And then if you recall on the section about the hierarchy of controls, when I was talking about personal protective equipment and the note for employers, that I mentioned that employers have to conduct a written hazard assessment before they select and issue PPE for their employees. There is an actual hazard assessment form in this folder also, if you would like to use it. And you don't have to be an employer to use it if you just want to do it for your work area, for yourself, and or for your independent contractors, just to make sure that you're doing all that you can do to make your workplace safe. Feel free to download that as well. And so I also have a list of other links here, the NIOSH Pocket Guide to Chemicals. And so this is a guide where you can look up any kind of chemicals that you're working with and find out how hazardous they are. The sound level meter app by NIOSH. This is one of several different types of sound level meter mobile apps that I was talking about earlier on the how to correct and prevent noise hazard slide. And so this is one that you can try out. And then also I provided a link here to the OSHA's consultation services. And so this is a no cost and confidential service that federal OSHA and state OSHA provides to anyone that needs help. So if today you saw something in my seminar that piqued your interest, that you want to look more into in your own workplace, then feel free to contact them, and there's no penalty, like they're here to help. So finally, the OSHA publications, this list of OSHA publications, these all align with the employer notes that you saw that I mentioned throughout my presentation. And so wherever you saw an employer note, then there's a OSHA publication here where you can get more information on it if you would like to have more information on those topics. And if you weren't able to write the link down to the Google Drive here, this is the Google Drive, then you can send me an email. My email is on the next slide and I'd be happy to send it to you. And so this is my email. It's daphneb@evergreensafety.org. And then also I provided the link directly to the Evergreen Safety Council. If you'd like to know more about the Safety Council and the services that they provide, feel free to explore their website and reach out if there is anything that we can do to assist you with your workplace safety and health needs. And so I want to thank you once again for attending my seminar today. And it's been a pleasure getting to talk to you today about studio and shop safety. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of the conference.
And now on to the Q&A. If you haven't already, head over to the chat, either to your right if you're viewing on a desktop, or below if you're on a smartphone, and join the discussion with the presenter and your fellow model makers. When you are ready, or after the session ends, you can head to the APMM Zoom meetup for further discussion or general information from an APMM representative. This Zoom meetup will be open all day from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For future sessions, head back to the conference schedule page for dates, times, and the appropriate link for each session. And as you discuss, we want to thank the companies and individuals that have supported the APMM and our conference efforts with their donations after we had to postpone our in-person conference last year. Your support means a lot to this organization, and it helped make this conference a reality. Find the names of our amazingly generous conference donors on the screen now. Thanks for coming to this session. We hope you enjoyed it.